By the way, what did you do in the Serbian monastery? I was in the seminary, but somehow...
Well, I founded the one at Gračanica. I got it licensed through the state.
Really?
The Metropolitan Irene asked me to come down and take it through the state licensing process. So I stayed there. I was there almost 5 years.
But I think it was founded like long time ago.
Yeah.
But like really.
I founded in the 1980s. I put it together.
What do you mean founded? Because I
I
think it was even.
There's one at Libertyville that's been there
Yes.
for a long time, but the one at Gračanica.
Yes.
They didn't build Gračanica until the 1980s.
Ah.
See, it wasn't even built.
Oh, okay.
So in the 1980s, when they wanted to start seminary, he asked me to come and take it through the state process.
Oh, okay.
So I just was there for the beginning of it, just to get through the licensing process. And after I left.
And why did you leave?
Hmm?
Why did you leave?
I come back to my monastery.
Oh, okay.
I had a typografia here that had to be run.
So you just went there as a, I don't know,
That's just
startup.
Founded.
As a startup. That's what they say. Startup, a monastery, like to start some kind of business.
To start the seminary, the Bogoslovia.
Yeah, you started the seminary or the monastery?
No, not the monastery.
The seminary.
No, Serbian monastery is not necessarily a monastery.
That's correct.
It's usually a diocesan headquarters.
Yes.
Headquarters for diocese, bishop lives there, but you don't have monks around or anything like that.
Yes.
You just have...
So what's the purpose of that monastery there? I don't understand.
Just to be an ethnic center. Ethnic center. It's a Serbian center.
Yes.
And Metropolitan Irene, was his father and my father fought together in the First World War. So we had a kind of a Kumovi relationship. But he built it as a model of the Gračanica Church because he was sure that Kosovo would be lost to Serbia. And he said that to preserve. So he built it as that. But it was always just a Serbian ethnic center.
Yes. And Libertyville, what's the purpose of that monastery, Sensavo?
Well, when they first built it, they had a few monks around in very, very old times. But later it became mostly a Bogoslovia and another ethnic center. But it hasn't functioned. I can't remember it functioning as a real monastery or Gračanica, either one. So the women have a monastery in, I think, Indiana.
Yes.
That's very strict and very serious-minded. That's the Igumenya. There is a very serious-minded person. So they're a serious monastery. But usually the women do it better anyway.
Women do better?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Well, I don't know. In Romania, it's amazing. I see these, they work in the field. Very primitive tools.
Yes.
That's what we would consider primitive. But they get along so well. And they're sort of upbeat all the time. They're joyous. And they just seem to have a way about them that's they're better at communal living. Somehow.
Women are better in communal living?
Yeah, when they go into the monastery, they are.
Okay.
It's something, the Chinese symbol for war is a house with 2 women in it.
For what?
The Chinese symbol for war is a house with 2 women in it.
House with 2 women?
Yeah, that's a symbol for war. But, so women, it depends on the circumstance, but women have...
In a monastery, it's different.
So women have done very well in monasticism. I kind of admire the way that they work together.
Actually, when I made a table of monasteries in Canada, not so many of them, no more than 10 I counted. And there are only 2 women's monasteries?
There's one in Ontario, I believe.
Yes,
And there's one at Bluffton, Alberta.
Yes.
Which is Old Calendar.
Yes.
And it's, when the first nuns were, I remember the early nuns were there.
In Alberta?
At Bluffton. And they were so hardworking. They had cattle, they had cows, and they milked cows, and they had tractor, and they plowed fields and things. And that monastery was built by Bishop Yosef. And the church, he cut down the trees, made the logs, and built it by hand himself. Benedicta Yosef was a great man. But the nuns that were there were so hardworking and so well organized. and they were very serious-minded people. And it was, but it sort of, people don't go there too much anymore, just a few people.
Why?
Well, old women used to go into a monastery, but they have their pension checks now, so they don't have to go.
They have
They have pension checks, and they have free medical care, so they don't have to go to monasteries. So once we had social insurance, the pension checks.
Pigeon checks?
Pension. You get old age pension.
Uh-huh.
You get in Russia too, old age pension. But once we had the pension checks and Medicare, they didn't have to go to convents anymore, so they don't.
Okay. Actually, so old calendar, it kind of officially means like schismatic or something.
Well, the monastery of Bluffton would be considered schismatic, I guess.
Yes.
No, I don't think of them that way, but...
Yes, because, and the Boston kind of too. I think they are, I don't know if this is the same thing, but I think they call, they kind of belong to the genuine Orthodox Church.
Yeah.
That's how it's called.
Yeah.
But then, for example, there is this assembly of bishops or something, which kind of gives you the list of official jurisdictions.
Yeah, well, the old calendars wouldn't participate.
Exactly.
In that. They wouldn't. Rokor, for a long time, Rokor wouldn't participate either.
Uh-huh.
But, now Rokor's become a little more... Rokor, of course, was schismatic before.
Yes.
And they were schismatic until Metropolitan Loras took them and reunited with them. So up until, I think, the 1980s, they were schismatic. So they couldn't belong to Skoba.
Yes.
But now they're part of Moscow Patriarchate, so they can belong. But they're still a little bit reticent because, there are various reasons that they hold a stricter faith than some of the others.
Okay.
And so they haven't been always that cooperative, but they belong because they represent Moscow Patriarchate.
Yes. Yes, I was just thinking, for example, in Russia, probably like 99% of communities and monasteries would be like official, kind of recommended to go. And Canada, in America, North America, I think for people, it's probably more difficult to differentiate. Like, is there such a idea of like the right monasteries and the wrong monasteries, like the right communities and jurisdictions and the wrong ones? Like,
well, I don't know. The old calendars are generally serious-minded people. They're not flippant. In Greece, the old calendars are recognized by the state.
Recognized.
They can baptize and marry and register with the state. And as long as Christodoulos was alive, Archbishop Christodoulos, I met with him 3 times about parish I had in Saloniki, and he recognized the old calendarist. So it's just a matter of all that stuff is nonsense. I don't pay attention to it.
Well, but I don't know. Like, if you,
I mean, on a jurisdictional basis, of course, we're not in communion with the old calendarist.
Yes.
The OCA is not. We belong to Moscow.
Yes.
And we're in communion with whoever Moscow's in communion with.
Yes.
So we're not in communion with them, but I won't refuse them communion.
You won't refuse them.
I won't refuse Coptic people communion either.
I
give communion to Coptic people and to Ethiopians.
Okay. And is it allowed to give communion to Aglashene or like catechumens?
Oh no, Aglashene, no, of course not.
No, not communion? Because I think I was in one parish, an OCA parish, and when the priest was reading prayers for catechumens, some people would come to him and stand under this book of his prayers, and so he would read. And then these people, or at least one, he came to communion.
Well, it's their business, not mine.
But generally it's not allowed.
No, it's not allowed at all. And in fact, I've known of parishes, not just heard of, but known of parishes. They'll give communion to Anglicans or Roman Catholics.